to episode 1 of what I will call the Revelations Revolution. The Revelations Revolution is all about, well, revelations and revolution. Very simple. What is the revolution? What are the revelations? That is the subject matter of this short 15-minute presentation. The concepts of the revelation are twofold. They're tied to the confluence of convergence of technologies, what really lies beyond the internet. The internet created sort of an interesting power, but it was only piece of what's becoming a power with the advent and convergence between what we've known as the cell phone and the telephone and the media. And so, going forward, there will be a confluence of convergence, but today and going forward, the power of the internet gives the power of a single individual to communicate massively to many people. Now, with that power comes the possibility that that massive communication from massive people or massive people spreading lies and, well, insults and just causing havoc and, well, advertising ourselves to the wrong things and whatever on the internet. And then there's the potential of something that lies beyond what we know as the internet. An internet that is working for us, an internet designed by us, working for us within sort of a power of an enterprise that we create together. So that's sort of the context of this confluence of convergence. And, well, I call it the land of D-Star here because D-Star is, well, you could call it democracy. It's the rise of the consumer. D also stands for disintermediation. It's when the powers that be can be disintermediated directly by an enterprise like, well, at a Walmart, disintermediated the Searses and certainly the mom and pups, and then along came Amazon and they're fighting it out, and Best Buy's in the middle and they'll die because ultimately everything in Best Buy will be obsolete, but that's a longer part of the bigger part of the interesting story. But interestingly, this new convergence of technology also converges with a time in our financial enterprise built upon sort of a debt concept that fit very well with the rise of the Industrial Revolution. And we've called what we're experiencing now, we've called it the Information Revolution. But Information Revolution really doesn't capture the future of what I'm describing in this confluence and convergence, because it's a revolution of mind where the minds become connected to the larger computer powers and capabilities in the clouds, everything to allow us to translate language between ourselves, to tear down our Babel towers. And that's where truth comes in. And that's where the interesting power of the internet is the power for an individual to preach to the choirs. And I didn't say one choir, I said all the choirs. And when I say choir, it doesn't necessarily mean in a freaking church. I'm talking about all the choirs of all the minds, all the choirs, of course, of the churches. But I am talking about the one larger choir of us. And if we start to cross-connect between the aspects of our enterprise and allow ourselves to break outside the boxes and the paradoxes of our paradigms, we could achieve a far better future. And that's where it got to a new economic paradigm. You see, this came, to give you a little bit of the history, I was in my living room experiencing well, after the crash of 2000, when the promise of technology stocks bubbled down and crashed out, and then, well, then we created a real estate boom, and I won't get into Greenspan and how he architected low interest rates, etc. But we created our own real estate boom, and then by 2005, real estate markets in California, which I just moved into, is like almost doubled in 4 years, and so it became self-evident, well, that there was a bubble in creation. Now, everybody says, well, what's wrong with the bubble? We can mortgage our houses big, etc., etc. Now, we also know the ramifications of that, but ultimately why the bubble would have to fail, and I predicted it then, is you didn't have a bubble in income. In fact, you could argue the incomes were arguably on the broad spectrum of the number of people on stagnation or decline. And anyway, if you don't have growing income, you don't grow your bubble. And as soon as it contracts, as you know, it contracts very fast. Okay, so I said to myself, okay, things go up, things go down, buy low, buy sell high. Well, the point is, I was looking at California and what you could do if you really own the whole state and built it out, the same image you could have of the United States of America. So, if you thought of America as a long-term investment and had the capital to do it, would you buy America? Would you buy California? Well, at the time I offered to buy California for 1.5, but it was minus 500 billion in debt. It's more now. If I bought California, they'd owed me money. But, and I was offering, this was more of a sort of an enigma for them to think about, 999 years of justice and peace on earth, based on insider information of worldly proportions. Now, how could I have such insider information, let alone justice and peace on earth? Well, I really don't. I didn't. I had a plan for it, but a man with a plan is better than no plan at all. And, well, that is the story I began to tell when I offered to buy California on 3/11/2005 for 1.5. But the point is this, what if, here's the plan, okay, we're the United States, we conspire, we decide, the President and Congress and the Federal Reserve and everybody get together, and the Supremes are on the side, and they say, listen, we're going to change the enterprise of the planet. We're going to change our entire structure, starting or ending with banking. And now what we're going to do is our Federal Reserve will go, and it could have been doing that for the past few years, that's a part of the story. We're going to buy out all these distressed mortgages at discount, and then buy the bonds of the bank, buy out the banks, buy them all out, take them out of business. Now, you could just nationalize them, but that's like, well, then you're like picking winners and losers. You know, just buy them out, pay them a nice little small premium, you're bought out. Now, then you go to all of the homeowners across the United States of America, and you say, listen, we've got a deal for you. We'll buy all your houses for 1.5. That's right, 1.5 for all the houses. When we buy the houses, you stay in your house. Now, I won't go into all the math of the houses, but at 1.5 we bail you out. And basically, well, the idea would be this. See, the Federal Reserve would issue money, and the banks would ultimately carry a mortgage, but the Federal Reserve would hold half of the value of the property in a trust. It would be like equity, so it wouldn't be banked, it would be equity. So in effect, let's say the United States has approximately $10 trillion, thereabouts, plus or minus 2 trillion in real estate housing. The Fed could effectively, well, I'm not going to get into the fact that we're discount buying mortgages and taking out money, and actually we could make some money on this deal. That's where it gets interesting. Well, the government, the Fed, and if we're working for the people, we could make money for the people. Anyway, but that's not allowed in your capitalist system. You're only allowed to make money for the few people. That's part of my issue here. Why can't the many people make money for the many people? Why must they be screwed by the few people? But That's a political question you're voting tonight or today, November 6th, 2012. But here's the thing. See, we buy out your housing. Those people underwater, they're basically covered. In fact, a lot of people are sitting there saying, hey, I've got equity in this. And, well, here's the thing. You could put your extra money into savings because we're going to create better saving systems. Savings where when you bank your money, you're not getting nothing for your money, you're getting something. See, that's for the new Bank of Us, because, by the way, when we recapitalize the housing such as that, we will blow up the building industry. In fact, I envision 20, 30 years of consistent, constant growth. Now, we must take a bigger plan to that growth. By the way, why would you start doing all this without saying, wait a minute, let's buy those people that are going to benefit by our own housing boom? So we must buy out all the copper miners, of course, and the forests for the freaking wood, and you could just keep doing the math to what you might have to buy. And that really gets to a broader thing, because as you start building an enterprise based on equity, well, okay, now you start to look at what is the larger enterprise of our nations. Now, I gave you a prescription for the financial thing, but it really must be done in a prescription for all nations, because here's the important thing to note. See, if we do what I just described, the mortgage costs go way down, okay, the cost of housing goes down. If the cost of housing goes down, the real standard of living goes up. And I won't get into a long dissertation. You can go ask Richard Wolff about the flatness of worker pay compared to rising productivity. But the problem of the worker on a paradigm that has never been as self-evident as now is that more and more, especially as people are aging, we are in a society where a greater proportion of our people are consumers, and we must have a way to provide a safety net and to provide more value to consumers. And if we operate a better enterprise together, we can create more net value of our consumers. Now, the point also, and why I call it a revolution, the convergence of these technologies and this new inflection point in the future of economics, which I've described in the context of the United States, which can't really be done without the context of the world, which I've described in technology and economic terms, but can't be able to be done with, I'll call it Big Thing 19, the convergence of all people under God. And, well, that gets into a biblical note, but if you had a plan to build heaven and earth, that was my plan. You have a plan to build heaven and earth. How do you explain, number one, how to build such a plan? Now, you could explain how to build it. There are going to people say, wait a minute, we're not supposed to deliver heaven and earth. God is going to come down and save us all. And now you got to get into argument, and I don't want to get into that argument, but while we're waiting for God to save us, if we were made in His own image, that wouldn't we be designed to save ourselves? And for those of you who think that is not God, that man is the closest thing to God, well, of course, if he's on his own image, well, you're almost on the same direction, but let's even not stop there. Those of you who believe in the vision of Ayn Rand, I shared part of the vision, but I shared a grander vision, because wouldn't Atlas not shrug? Would not Atlas rise and say, wait a minute, one Atlas can't do this, but all of our Atlases together, we can achieve everything we want and build all the other guys, put them out of our way, while we build a great empire. But how do we measure an empire? The only way to measure an empire is by counting the value of the humanity and the innovation and the knowledge we create. And we create knowledge not through pieces of paper, but through minds. From infinite minds comes infinite harmony. Prove me wrong. Or not. You choose.